Hello and welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's top 5 best uses of the Doctor from Star Trek Voyager. This video is a Patreon requested video, requested by Patreon supporter Chase Gullett. Thanks so much for supporting the channel and for your request of this video. Now, this video is very similar to another video that Chase had requested a month ago or two, where he had requested the top 5 best uses of data. Well, this time I'm doing the top 5 most intriguing uses of the Doctor. So, I'm using a similar guidelines format, and as I did for that video, that is not necessarily my top 5 favorite Doctor episodes. That would be a different list. These would be the top 5 episodes in which I felt like the Doctor was utilized the best, that you got a sense of his character, who he is, combined with the fact that he's a hologram and an artificial intelligence, and something that combined those two things, his individuality, his humanity, and also use the fact that he is a hologram. So here's what I came up with my list on my top 5 most intriguing uses of the Doctor. Number 5 is the episode Nothing Human from Season 5 of Star Trek Voyager. In this episode, B'Elanna Torres gets attacked by this weird-looking creature. I always love when Star Trek has weird-looking creatures instead of just humans with bumps on their foreheads. And it was this little thing that was stuck to her neck. And the Doctor had no idea how the hell to get this thing off of her, and it was going to kill her. So they were sort of attached, and you couldn't get it off without killing it, which he didn't want to do either because it was an intelligent species just trying to survive. So he created a hologram of a brilliant scientific researcher doctor who was an expert in exobiology and who would know how to handle a situation like this. Problem was, this doctor happened to be a Cardassian. Well, no issues, He's like, well, so what if it's an enemy of the Federation? He's a doctor. But turns out, not just any Cardassian, that he tortured Bajorans during the Bajoran occupation and mutilated them for his scientific research. So all of his scientific research, which the Doctor is utilizing, was a direct result, was gained from the abuse and torture of others. And so there is a Bajoran crew member who is not okay with this, and the Doctor at first is very much arguing that, okay, yes, this information was got by horrible means, but it doesn't mean that we can't use it to, save B'Elanna's life, because it's the only way we can save her life. And in fact, when B'Elanna herself was conscious, she insisted that the research that the scientists gave would not be used to save her life. Now, the hologram himself, of course, was not programmed with the information of this torture, so he had no knowledge of it. He's like, well, I'm just a caveman. I'm just a hologram. Why you just use my knowledge? I'm not that same guy. So it was a very interesting character study for the Doctor, because at first he was dead set on, yes, we have to use this because it's the only way to save B'Elanna's life. So it showed his compassion, his also sort of camaraderie with another hologram, and identifying with this hologram as not being the same as the person it was modeled after. However, his mind was changed. He was won over by B'Elanna and Tabor's arguments, where even though he did in fact go against B'Elanna's wishes, and he did in fact use the hologram's help to save B'Elanna's life, but during getting to know the hologram more, he realized how much this hologram was actually like the evil person. And even though he used it once to save B'Elanna's life, he could not justify doing it again in the future, and so he deleted the hologram and erased all of the research that was gained from this Doctor, so they could never use it again. So even if they came across another situation similar to this, he would be screwed. And that was a really nuanced decision and nuanced portrayal of the Doctor that took advantage of his being a hologram and showed like the complexity of this character. So that is my number 5. Number 4 on my list is the 7th season episode, Critical Care. Now, this episode has some really contrived circumstances in order to have this plot. But the plot itself, and it had a really dumb and stupid subplot, but the main plot itself was actually very powerful and a very strong commentary on particularly the U.S. health system and how that is a debacle disaster. In this situation, the Doctor finds himself at a alien hospital where he's asked to treat the sick, and he finds that those who are really in need are neglected. The medicine they need is neglected because it is given to keep rich people or people who have strong standing in society healthy. They're already healthy, but it's given to them so they can be preventative methods, whereas others needed to freaking survive. But there's this administrator dude who's like, well, who cares about those people who need to survive because they're not helpful to society, they're just mining workers, screw them. And so the Doctor, having these battle of wits with this administrator over and over again, it seems like the administrator gets the better of him until, in fact, to the point where the Doctor's good friend dies because the administrator withholds the medicine that he needs, and so the Doctor loses his shit. Makes the computer think that this administrator is actually one of the mindless workers, meaningless workers as far as they're concerned, and injects him with lethal viruses that's gonna kill him. And he, of course, is like, "Oh, you're gonna cure me," and the Doctor basically wins over the medical staff of that world because he shows how flawed their system is, and also says, "Look, if you treat all the level red patients, then that will include you. So you gotta do it." So you kind of blackmails him into doing it, and it works. And there's a nice, interesting scene at the end of the episode because the Doctor goes, once he's back on Voyager, goes to 7 and 9 and is like, can you look at my program to see if my morals or my program's malfunctioning, my moral subroutines aren't working correctly because I injected a man with viruses and almost killed him. And 7 of 9 does as he asks and says, no, nothing wrong with your program. Your program is just fine. Which is a strong statement because it's basically saying that he did in fact do the right thing. The Doctor did in fact do the right thing because he saved many lives by threatening to kill that one guy because the system was fucked up. Then we'll get into my number 3 most intriguing use of the Doctor, which is an episode called Year of Hell. Now, Year of Hell is not a Doctor episode. He is one of many. It's more of an ensemble episode, and if we're going to be totally fair, it's mostly focused on Janeway. However, as I said, this is not my top 5 favorite Doctor episodes. This is the top 5 most intriguing uses of the Doctor, and I felt like this was an extremely poignant and important episode for the Doctor, even though, as you can argue, but the timeline was erased at the end of the episode, so it's a reset button, so you don't remember. Nobody remembers what happens in this 2-parter. Anyway, I don't care. It shows you what the Doctor is capable of, and it was because the ship was falling apart, people were dying, and the Doctor was put in a situation where there was 2 people who were running down the corridor, but the corridor was about to be exposed to space and destroy the whole ship unless he sealed it. Of course, if he sealed it, then those people would die. So he had to choose between destroying the whole ship or killing those 2 people. So of course, he killed the two people. And it weighed, and he was getting really upset, and he was like yelling at Paris for talking to B'Elanna for too long instead of doing triage. It's like blah 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 blah, but really, and it was obvious, and it really showed his humanity, his human side, how flawed he was, and how this was something he never had to deal with before. And Tom had to sit him down and be like, look, and he could tell. The doctor tried to hide it, be like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine, but obviously he wasn't. And also, in this two-parter, is when he saw that Janeway was becoming suicidal and taking outrageous risks that were damaging her health, and rightfully stood up to her and said, you are relieved of duty, as I'm the medical doctor. And Janeway, at this point, of course, was so on edge. She's like, well, if you try to relieve me of duty, I'll delete your program. And I love his response. His response was just to calmly say, well, that threat in and itself is a sign that you're not functioning correctly. And he's totally right. And Janeway even gives in to this logic and is like, yes, I'm sorry, I'm not going to delete your program. Totally right, doctor, that was out of line. But I'm not going to relieve myself of duty. And so he recites the Starfleet regulations, hereby relieve you of duty. And she's like, well, are you going to get a phaser and hold me down? Because it's the only way you're going to relieve me of duty. And he's like, well, you know, by defying direct order, you risk a general court-martial. And her response is, well, if we ever get back to Starfleet, for me to face a court-martial, I will very gladly face the music. Which I love, because I mean, Janeway kind of had the point because she was keeping the ship in one piece, but the doctor, of course, also had the point that she was putting her health, her life at risk, and taking unnecessary risks, outrageous risks. But in the end, they had that compromise, and I love the way the doctor reasoned with her. So it was just a powerful episode for the doctor overall. Anyway, we will then get into my number 2 most intriguing use of the Doctor, and that is the second season episode, Life Signs. One of my favorite romance, if not my favorite romance episode. It is when the Doctor falls in love with a woman, a Vidian, who is suffering from the phage, and he's trying to save her life, and so he finds a way to put her consciousness into a hologram. And again, this is an intriguing use of a hologram because the Doctor is falling in love with a real person, but a holographic version of that person. A flesh and blood, I should say, rather than real, because the Doctor's real. But a flesh and blood person. But, of course, the hologram of her is her body how it should look when she's beautiful without being ravaged by the phage, by the disease that makes them look completely. And so she gets this complex. And I love, it shows the Doctor is only like a year or two after he's been activated. So it shows his inexperience with social matters, especially with love, where he just casually in the middle of surgery is like, oh, by the way, I have feelings for you. I'm wondering if you share them. And Cass is trying to be like, Doctor, now it's not the right time. He's like, Cass, quiet, I'm talking to her. Which, it shows how naive, and of course, when she turns him down because he did it so fucking awkwardly, he's like devastated, and he talks to Tom Paris. He's like, oh, I can't believe I fucked this up, nobody likes me. And then once he describes the situation to Paris is like, well, I think you just went about it the wrong way. You kind of fucked that one up, Doctor. Try it again with less people around in the right circumstances. And they did, and it works. And they have this nice little, a really touching romance. But then he is doing surgery to save her life, and she purposely tries to sabotage it because she wants to die, because she doesn't want to live being ugly, being this disfigured person, and she wants the Doctor to remember her as the beauty of her holographic image. And the Doctor convinces her of her inner beauty, and that what she looks like doesn't really reflect on how beautiful she really is. It is very touching, very powerful, and he convinces her to let him save her life, and then once she's back in her actual body, the Doctor still loves her just the same, and they dance together before she leaves. It's really, really touching. And there's one more episode where she appears and they still love each other, but then that's it. But it's still very, very intriguing use of the Doctor. So, finally, we will get to my number one most intriguing use of the Doctor. And that is a 4th season episode called Living Witness. Now, kind of like Year of Hell, or even more so, it's kind of cheating a bit because this isn't the actual Doctor. This is the backup program of the Doctor, which, to be fair, that whole concept is a bit of nonsense thrown in there just for plot convenience. There's no backup of the Doctor. That's a perfect replica of the Doctor. Get out of here with that. However, without that concept, which is obviously nonsensical, you can't have this episode. And this episode is really good, so we can overlook that. But yes, this is an extremely powerful use of the Doctor because it's when his backup program was apparently stolen by these aliens and left behind on this alien planet to be activated 700 years in the future, and his alien race has a very whacked up idea of what Voyager is like. And so they had this historical program that shows, Janeway as this evil. It's like almost mirror universe. So very comical. Lets the, regular cast ham it up. It's like, oh, I'm going to kill you. But it does show how history can be misinterpreted if there's incomplete data, because they got some things right, but they got other things completely horribly wrong. And the Doctor tries to set the record straight, because you're portraying me and my crew as a bunch of psychotic, psychopathic murderers when nothing could be further from the truth. We want to explore, we want to make peace, we want to, seek out new life forms and make, and we came in peace, and this is nothing like we're at. But he starts to realize that there is a racial component. There's like a race war going on from two alien species, one that was subjugated by the other, partially because of the consequences of Voyager. And the Doctor starts to re-examine his position as a race war starts to break out. And he realizes that he was just so obsessed with clearing himself and his crew's good name that he didn't realize the damage that he was doing on the global scale, and that his existence isn't worth that. And he said, offered to delete his own program, basically kill himself, rather than be the cause of a race war. But the historian, who at first hated the Doctor because thought he was a war criminal, but through their interactions got to know and appreciate him, which was really well earned, the historian told the Doctor, no, you should not kill yourself. You should not delete your program. You should work with me to set the record straight. And through setting the record straight, we can help mend the conflict between the two races. And so in an epilogue, we hear that the Doctor and the historian work together. In fact, it goes 700 years even further into the future to show that the Doctor and the historian worked together and they created peace between the races. And eventually the Doctor became one of the head doctors at the planet until eventually leaving to go search back for Earth to see if his crew ever made it home, even though it was 1,000 years after that. It's very powerful. Very good use of the Doctor, even though the whole backup program is bullshit. It was still interesting use of having a hologram who, could just appear 700 years later exactly the same. And it was a good character growth for him, as at first he was, egotistical and just wanted to. He was upset that people thought of him and his crew that way, but then he realized there were bigger elements, and he was willing to sacrifice himself to prevent a race war. But then the historian, who he earned his friendship, convinced him not to, and they worked together for the greater good. It's very powerful. I think is the best example of showing the strength of character of the Doctor, and it's definitely the most intriguing use of the Doctor. So that's it for my top 5 most intriguing uses of the Doctor. Thanks so much for watching this. Thank you for Chase Gullet for suggesting this video. And thank you for all the Patreon supporters that support my channel. Very much appreciated. Could not do this without the help of all the Patreon supporters. Chase Gullet, Brendan Howells, Norman Buchwald, Britton Berg, and everyone else who supports my channel on Patreon. And all those who subscribe and like my videos as well. Your support is very much appreciated and does keep me going. And if you would like to support me on Patreon, there is a link to Patreon in the description below. $1 or more will get you early access to certain videos, and also if you do $5 or more, you get even more early access, and $10 or more, you can request videos like this one. But however, if you're unable to support me on Patreon, that's okay, as long as you can support me in other ways, such as subscribing and leaving a like. That is also very much appreciated. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you're finding me for the first time, you can check out my channel, as I cover many other Star Trek videos, as well as videos on many other shows, such as Star Wars, The Clone Wars, The Expanse, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.